Great Biafrans, lovers of truth, justice, and wisdom, I welcome you to my live podcast today, being Saturday, the 21st of February, 2026, in the year of our Lord. I say good evening to you, but depending on where you're listening to me from, I say good afternoon and good morning. As you know, I like to stick to a maximum of 60 minutes whenever I speak to our people for the sake of precision and the avoidance of ambiguity, and for the sake of attention span as well, and the capacity to retain the very important message embedded in whatever I say. This evening, I am calling for the empowerment of Biafran voices through a deeper commitment to reflection. So my topic says, empowering Biafran voices, a call to reflection, responsibility, and leadership. As a transformative life coach, for every step one intends to take, for every change one needs to make, for every goal one needs to attain, there must be a reflection. You must reflect on where you're coming from and where you're going to, and what you need to do, what you need to change in order to get to where you are going to, or where you intend to get to. Today, it is not a day that I have come to talk about history. It is not a day I have come to talk about how we are being killed. It is not a day I've come to talk about the conviction, the illegal and unjust conviction of our leader, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. It is not the day I have come to talk about infiltrators or things going on or going wrong in our land. Today is the day that I've come to speak to us as a people, to call us into reflection on how we sometimes, by ourselves, by our hands, make ways for our enemies to weaken and destroy us. This call situates the Biafran experience within a wider African context, drawing parallels with South Africa's struggle against apartheid and recently Somaliland's pursuit of self-governance. These shared histories reveal how communities across the continent have confronted injustice, marginalization, and conflict while striving for dignity and recognition. So for us as a people, we are striving for dignity and recognition. And at the same time, or the reason we're doing that is because we are being confronted with injustice, marginalization, and conflict. Before I proceed, I must reiterate the importance of peace and unity, especially in a time such as this, where our leader, Nnamdi Kanu, is being held by the kakistocratic government of Nigeria, while the British government pretends they can't hear me, or us, as the case may be. Peace and unity is our ticket to stability and actualization of our sovereign state. Biafran voices will be more empowered through the lens of consciousness, where we will reflect on our journey and, based on understanding, follow the positive path of responsibility and leadership in our self-determination quest. This is a defining moment for every serious member of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, under the leadership of Nnamdi Kanu. So let us begin where we should have begun long ago, and that is with reflection. Movements such as where we are at this moment, movements such as IPOB, do not collapse because external enemies bombarded them with wars and conflict. No, movements such as this collapse because of internal indiscipline, ego battles, and the inability of members to understand structure, timing, and strategy. I need you to underline these two factors, time and strategy. A movement does not prove its strength when everything is calm. It proves its maturity when pressure mounts on them, when their leader is absent, and when internal tensions threaten unity. Just give me a second. It seems like I'm getting a message. What is going on? I am reading that I can't be heard on Can everyone hear me on Facebook? Can anyone hear me? Can you hear me on Facebook? Can you indicate, please? Am I coming out clearly on Facebook and on X? Oh. I'm learning that my Twitter is bad. That the Twitter, I think... Okay. Okay. So I am coming out clearly on Facebook. Apparently, the problem is the Twitter. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. I've gotten a response that the Twitter is going out clearly now. The sound is audible now. Okay. These sort of things can be distracting, so I'm very sorry. Please, pardon me. It's a hitch in in technology. So if I think what I will do, I will download what I've done on Facebook in the end and post it on Twitter or X. I prefer to call it Twitter. Okay, if for the sake of the people listening to me on Twitter, I believe I am coming out loud and clear now. I would summarize what I have said earlier. I did say that today is not the day I have come to talk about or campaign about the killings we are experiencing in Biafran land, or talk about the injustice or the unjustly conviction of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, but I have come today to talk about the reflection that we need as a people in order to empower the Biafran voices. A call to reflection, the responsibility required, and the leadership, the capacity of the leadership required to drive us forward. And I did say that I must reiterate the importance of peace and unity, especially in a time such as this, where Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, being held by the kakistocratic government of Nigeria, the British government sitting on the fence over the years, pretending not to hear us, and sometimes giving me excuses. And I also said that peace and unity is our ticket to stability and actualization of our sovereign state. And I said that Biafran voices will be more empowered through the lens of consciousness, where we will reflect on our journey, and based on understanding, we will follow the positive path of responsibility and leadership in our self-determination quest. And so for people, everyone who is under the leadership of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, IPOB, this is a defining moment for us. So we must begin with reflection. And I did say that as a transformative life coach, for every step anyone needs to take or must take, that person must reflect. There must be reflection. You must reflect on where you're coming from in order to understand where you are going to. Moments such as this, movements all over the world, did not collapse because of external enemies. Movements such as this, such as IPOB, collapse because of internal indiscipline, ego battles, and the inability of members to understand structure, timing, and strategy. And I said that I would like us to underline the word there, time and strategy. These are very important factors that must be applied at the appropriate time. A movement does not prove its strength when everything is calm. It proves its maturity when pressure mounts, when their leader is absent, and when internal tensions threaten unity. What we are witnessing today is not unusual in liberation struggles, but what will determine our future and our success is how we respond to it. Our reflection question today is, does my behavior portray IPOB as a serious liberation movement? The way I behave, the way I act, does it put IPOB under the light of a serious liberation movement? Is this how serious liberation movement behave when their leader is incarcerated? This is where the light of reflection is being shone. So let us examine history. Clearly, history has shown that liberation movements either mature under the strain of the absence of their leader or fracture. And this fracture could be because of ego, impatience, and internal sabotage. The experience of the ANC of South Africa, which is the African National Congress, offers a sobering example. So that's where I am drawing this reflection from. When Nelson Mandela was imprisoned for 27 years, mind you, that wasn't the first time he was going to prison. He had been to prison a few times before that very longer one. The ANC did not implode. There were disagreements. Of course, as humans, there were ideological debates. There were operational challenges. Yet, the movement did not publicly dismantle its own structure or structures. It preserved discipline. It respected its chain of command. And it strengthened their international advocacy and expanded underground networks. Loyalty to the cause did not become conditional on physical access to the imprisoned leader. Members understood that weakening internal leadership while Mandela was incarcerated would only strengthen the apartheid regime. So bring it back home. When you bring down the structure of IPOB, you are strengthening the strength of Nigeria government. That is what you're doing. The parallels with IPOB are evident. Both movements center around a detained leader who symbolizes a larger struggle. Both rely heavily on communication platforms to amplify their message. Both of them face external pressure designed to weaken morale and provoke division. The difference lies in institutional maturity. The ANC had decades of structural consolidation before Mandela's long imprisonment. But IPOB, by comparison, is younger and still consolidating its internal architecture. That difference makes discipline even more essential, not less. There are other liberation movements that followed similar paths. The Frelimo in Mozambique, and the ZANU PF, that's the Zimbabwean National Union. And the PF, I think, is the Patriotic Front. And this was during Zimbabwe's struggle. And the other one is the Eritrean People's Liberation Front in Eritrea. All endured periods of detention. They all have similar predicament as we are having this moment. They all endured periods of detention, exile, infiltration, and propaganda warfare. And that is always what comes with freedom. None of these groups survived through gossip. None succeeded by publicly tearing down their own structures. They survived because members understood rules. They understood rules. They respected organizational hierarchy and subordinated personal grievances to collective objectives. Internal attacks on IPOB structure while calling for the release of Nnamdi Kanu creates a strategic contradiction. You cannot demand institutional strength while simultaneously undermining the very institution. You cannot claim to defend a movement while eroding its command structure. Liberation struggles require patience. They require clarity of strategy. They require internal cohesion, particularly when the central figure is absent. Movements are sustained by organizers, strategists, communicator, diplomats, financiers, and foot soldiers, many of whom operate outside of public eye. Serious struggles are not sustained on comment section or in comment sections. They are sustained by structure, discipline, and coordinated efforts. I think there's something called ekeronreke. Ekeronreke. Just as we have on the human body, you have the head, eyes, nose, mouth, hands, legs. When you stop using your legs to walk and use your hands to walk, there is a difference, and people will see you as someone who is either disabled, can't use your legs, or something is wrong with the brain, or you're messing around. So if IPOB and its platforms remain primary channels through which Igbo voices are projected, or if we say that is what we are fighting for, then they must be treated as strategic institutions require order. As strategic institutions. And strategic institutions require order. They require internal mechanisms for disagreement. I am not here today to say that you can never disagree with someone. You can disagree with someone, But can you find the right channel to put through your disagreement? To you usually would have ombudsmen, you would have third party people who would deal with issues. So it's not abnormal to have disagreement in an institution, in a movement, in a company, in families, and there is always disagreement. But the difference is how you deal with that disagreement and what you understand it to be. Okay? So they also require maturity. Public fragmentation only benefits adversaries who seek to portray the movement as unstable. So I have I've read critics writing or criticizing IPOB members, criticizing Nnamdi Kanu, criticizing every single thing that IPOB members do. But what usually gets me is when I read that 99% of IPOB members are illiterate. That's not true. That is not true. IPOB is embedded by intellectuals, as far as I know. So I see where that criticism is coming from, where some certain group of people behave in a certain way. It is attributed to the intellectual capacity of the whole group or the whole person in the group. And that is a very funny narrative. So empowerment begins with reflection, my people. Reflection demands honesty. It demands honesty about conduct. Responsibility demands restraint. Where leadership demands placing the cause above personal pride. When a movement faces external pressure and internal dissent simultaneously, the deciding factor here is not rhetoric, it is discipline. I am a huge fan of discipline. It is very, very important. And history does not reward movements that collapse under the weight of internal division. It only recognizes and rewards those that endure, organize, and remain focused despite adversity. If the objective is freedom and dignity, then unity and structured leadership are not optional factors here or virtues. They are strategic necessities that we must hold on to. I understand that also in history, when a leader is detained, emotions rise, opinions multiply, and frustrations surface. Yet, the same history teaches us that successful liberation movements survive not on emotion, but on discipline and structure. Anyone who knows me, or at least those few people who were able to come in contact with me, will know something about me. They may not like it because it's not favorable. But what they know is that my feet are well rooted in peace and unity, but even more so, more rooted in discipline and structure. You see, discipline and structure, I don't play with it. I do not play with it. And I do not play with the consciousness of the recognition of discipline and structure. Some of us go to work, we work in the bank, some work in the hospital, the same people who go to hospital, who are nurses and doctors and lawyers, when they sit in their office, they sit under the structure of their work environment, their company, their hospital, wherever it is that they work. It does not mean that you cannot disagree with your manager. It does not mean you cannot disagree with your co-worker. When I was still working, I disagree with my manager. I am someone I do my job pretty well, and I tell you off if you're off track. So anyone who knows me will know something about me, that my feet are well rooted in peace and unity. I love peace and unity. But most importantly, I love this. If you're not disciplined, you cannot sit. You and I have no business for a whole 1 hour, for 1 hour. Discipline and structure. Because if you're disciplined and you follow a structural a map or rules and regulation, you can hardly offend the other person. Because not everyone has the consciousness to deal with certain situations. But with laws and policies and rules and regulations, these things are kept in check. So for me, I do not play with that. Discipline and structure. Regardless who the person in the structure is. I learned someone saying that, in 2015, I cited the DOS. I don't know who is the DOS. It's not a person. DOS is not a person. It's a steering structure that Nnamdi Kanu put in place. And before the creation of DOS, Nnamdi Kanu and I sat down together and I understood the importance of what that DOS meant and what it means up until this moment. So I don't play with it. If Nnamdi Kanu comes out and puts cockroach as the DOS, if you ask me the next day, I will tell you that this cockroach is what Nnamdi Kanu has instituted. And it will sit there until he comes back. That cockroach will continue to fly until Nnamdi Kanu comes out. That is discipline. That is commitment. So for me, someone did say, as I was saying, that I am in support of Mazi Chinasa Nworu. I have never met Mazi Chinasa Nworu before. I don't know him. What I know is that Mazi Chinasa Nworu is a member of DOS who is loyal to Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, regardless what anybody says. And I am someone who you cannot shift. Nobody shifts me. You can't. But regardless what you think. So in discipline and structure, I stand. And that consistency, I do not mess around with it because that is integrity. And I don't care who you are. If you are off the track, I will tell you that you are off the track. And however you decide to interpret my clarification is your cup of tea. That is your toronkocha. If you understand my drift. So it does not mean a few times I have sent a message across to the DOS and said, I am noticing this. Even though a few times I've not got any feedback or, a response or anything, but I do send out messages. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu remains the leader of IPOB. And in his absence, he instituted a structure that exists to spearhead the movement. That structure is not ornamental. It is functional. So to attack it recklessly while demanding Nnamdi Kanu's release is to weaken the very institution that carries Nnamdi Kanu's mandate forward. If we consider the journey of the ANC in South Africa, when Nelson Mandela was imprisoned for 27 years, the ANC did not collapse, of course. Did they have disagreements? Of course, yes. There were tensions, undoubtedly, of course, but the movement understood that apartheid would not be defeated through internal sabotage. The ANC preserved its structures. They strengthened their international networks, just as I've mentioned earlier. And they maintained loyalty to its cause and to its imprisoned leader. Not every member visited Mandela. Not every member was publicly visible. But every disciplined member understood that unity was non-negotiable. IPOB shares important similarities with the ANC. That is why I have chosen to draw my reflection from the apartheid in South Africa. Both movements center around a detained leader who embodies, Nnamdi Kanu embodies the aspiration of our people. Nnamdi Kanu is the face of our people. The suffering of Nnamdi Kanu is the suffering of our people. He is the symbolic. Or rather, it is symbolic. So both of these operate under intense scrutiny and external pressure. Both also rely on communication platforms to sustain ideological clarity. However, the difference in institutional maturity is that the ANC had decades to entrench on-the-ground systems, diplomatic alliances, and operational discipline before Mandela's imprisonment, while IPOB, being comparatively younger, is still consolidating its internal resilience. That makes discipline no one must mess with it, makes it even more critical. Other liberation journeys reinforce this lesson. As I mentioned, the Frelimo and the Eritrean and the rest of them, the Indian National Congress also continued to campaign while Mahatma Gandhi was repeatedly jailed by colonial authorities. In each case, imprisonment did not become an excuse for indiscipline. It became a test for loyalty, patience, and organizational depth. Today, internal rifts and public disparagement of the DOS reflect a dangerous impatience, a very dangerous impatience that is going on. Criticism is not inherently wrong. I do not believe that a member of the DOS has not offended one of their members. I do not believe that. I believe that in every single communication or encounter you have with someone, depending on how that occurred, one person might be offended. The important thing is to understand that you are gathered under the same purpose, under Nnamdi Kanu, under the umbrella of IPOB, and that we are facing external pressure So when someone offends you in the DOS, I've said that before, excuse me, you write to that person. You write to that person and say, here, you offended me here and I didn't like it. And if that person does not do anything about it, you take it to a higher office that will deal with that. Even though a few times I've heard that someone, reported and nothing happened. Nnamdi Kanu set up a resolution department where, a conflict resolution department where what is it called? Disagreements are settled. But if you come out publicly, that is where the problem is. So your criticism, if you have a problem with a certain person, you criticize on that person, it is not inherently wrong. If someone is doing something that you are misunderstanding or means it doesn't misconstruction, you're misconstruing that very act, you make it known to that person or go through the right channel. So criticism is actually, I find criticism very healthy. Everybody must not love what the DOS is doing. Everybody must not love what Uchechi Okwu-Kanu, how he speaks, how he's not, promising Nigeria, to burn them down, and how he has worship in front of their doors. You must not love him like that. Some people like people who shout, who are braggadocious. Some people like him the way he is. So if you're upset about how God has made Uchechi Okwu-Kanu, you can write to him and say, I am upset. I am upset at how God has made you a very calm person. Can you be more, feisty? Can you be more fierce? Well, that's me just being a little bit cheeky. But all I'm trying to say is, you must not love what the DOS members are doing. So your criticism should actually help them grow. And the question is, what have you done to help them become better? Have you done anything to support them? Have you done anything to support the growth of IPOB? What have you done to support the release of Nnamdi Kanu? So your criticism will help the DOS to grow, to become better. So send your criticism to them. But there is a difference between constructive criticism or between constructive internal critique and open destabilization, where you disparage your very institution publicly, bearing in mind that your adversaries are watching and seeking a gap to come through to destroy you perpetually. Yeah. So a movement that fights itself in public weakens its moral authority and strategic leverage. Those who rush to tear down structure before the leader's release must ask whether their actions strengthen the cause or merely satisfy personal grievances. Gossip and character attacks are not tools of liberation. It's actually tools for people who are not very busy. Liberation movements are sustained by coordinated efforts, not competitive activism. Not all contributions are visible, and not all roles are public. But what matters is alignment with structure and commitment to the collective objective. The ANC understood that the imprisonment of Nelson Mandela was a test to its members, not of Mandela himself. In the same way, the detention of Nnamdi Kanu is testing the IPOB's internal discipline. I am reading a comment here. The problem is that I've come to understand, not that it is a problem, it's a problem, but I've also come to understand that problem, that some people have problem with inference. Inference is where you understand a subject based on facts, okay? On facts and logical deductions within that context. Not what you think, and I don't really care what anybody thinks, but I listen to you when you're logical and when you present me with facts. Yeah, someone said to me, Mazi Chinasamuru was talking about how to take over Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's position. I said, okay, so where is the voice note? Did you not do a voice? You should have recorded it. He said, Hapagudinke voice note, forget voice note. You're mad. You're insane. When you come to me and speak to me, or you present a very serious accusation, such as someone wanting to take over Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's. First of all, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's position is untouchable. I just want you all to understand that. Sometimes I can't even discuss it. I can't even talk about it because I've come to realize that people don't even understand what Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's position is, what it stands for. It's irreplaceable. Nobody can take over. All these DOS members, they are just holding the fort for Mazi Nnamdi Kanu to come out. That is to the best of my knowledge. And for what is worth, we will hold the fort until Mazi Nnamdi Kanu comes out. And every single thing that every member of DOS has done, they will account to Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Except there is something else that is a problem, and not of how they may have acted in his absence. So having said that, empowering Biafran voices requires more than passion. It requires reflection, the willingness to assess our actions honestly. It requires responsibility and the discipline to protect the movement's integrity. Even when emotions run high, it requires leadership. The courage to stand by the structure, to reject gossip, and to place the cause above personal recognition. So history shows that liberation is never achieved by movements that devour themselves. It is achieved by movements that endure, organize, and remain loyal to their foundational purpose. If IPOB is to stand as a credible vehicle for the aspirations of the Igbo people, then unity on that structure must prevail. Okay? The Somaliland's recent recognition by Israel is more than a diplomatic headline. It wasn't just a headline. I mean, everyone has actually forgotten that Somaliland was recently recognized. For any people seeking self-determination, it is a mirror where to draw a lesson, warning, and roadmap from. Somaliland is a self-governing de facto independent state in the Horn of Africa. And that's since 1991. It has run its own affairs, its own currency, police, army, elections, and institutions. We have something like that where the Catalonians in the Spain region are doing. And we still have Scotland doing their own thing. And I believe we can actually build ours, like, we can get on with that too. We are capable. Somaliland was not internationally recognized, but the Somalia was, or is rather. So while Somaliland has, carried on with its own currency, army, and all that, Somalia, the internationally recognized state, struggled with instability, terrorism, and internal fragmentation. Yet, for 33 years, no country recognized Somaliland's sovereignty. Not one. For 33 years. How did they go through with that? For 33 years, no country recognized Somaliland's sovereignty until now. So Israel's recognition did not come because Somaliland shouted the loudest, or because Somaliland built something the world. Actually, Israel recognized Somaliland because Somaliland built something the world could no longer ignore. And this is where our reflection must begin. So what Somaliland built before the world looked their way? What did they build? What did Somaliland build before the world looked their way? So, a clear historical foundation of Somaliland being a British protectorate, gaining independence in 1960, and being recognized by more than 30 countries, where it voluntarily united with Italian Somalia. Later, it voluntarily withdrew after a decade of war and repression. Their claim rests on history, law, and documented facts. Secondly, internal order before external recognition. So while Somalia battled terrorism, political chaos, and federal disputes, Somaliland quietly built. They built functioning institutions. They built peaceful transition of power. They built a stable currency. They built disciplined security structures. They did not wait for the world to validate them. They validated themselves. Another thing they did for the world to recognize them is the culture of dialogue. Somaliland elders and leaders held long, difficult clan conferences. They disagreed, but they agreed on one thing: Somaliland first. Somaliland first. So I believe that what has brought us together is Biafra first. And because it is Biafra first, every single pain or disagreement or anger that you have, please channel it to the right port, or to the right portal. Hold through. Another one is that they built patience and discipline. 33 years of consistency, no shortcuts, no internal sabotage. no overthrow of government or coup or whatever, no competing governments, no diaspora noise, drowning local strategy. They understood that nation building is not a performance, that it requires discipline. Now, why Israel finally recognized Somaliland is because Israel did not act out of sentiment. That recognition was not out of emotional thoughts or reflection towards the Somalilanders. It is strategic. It is strategic. Israel saw stability in Somaliland. They saw coherence. They saw reliability. They saw a unified political voice. They saw a functioning state that behaves like a state. That is to show you that recognition is a respect earned through consistency. So you have to behave like a state. So if you look at this journey of Somaliland, you can see that it exposes the gaps that we are currently bearing. There are so many gaps in our own. Because we can't demand from the world what we have not built at home. A nation is not declared on social media. A nation is built on institutions. A nation is built on unity. A nation is built on discipline and internal order. We must stop outsourcing our liberation. Somaliland did not beg the world. They built themselves until the world had no choice but to take them seriously. Nnamdi Kanu consistently spoke of consistency. He said, out of consistency, the world, even the media houses that refused to air anything or whatever that we were doing as at that time, began to carry our stories and our events without even being asked. So internal contradictions must be resolved. It's part of the reason that I'm here. If you do not have the understanding that I am supporting nobody, the only thing that I am supporting is the structure that Nnamdi Kanu put in place. Understand that and know peace. Okay? And when because I understand what the structure stands for and what it is doing and what it has been doing. If this structure was not standing, this boy in Finland, that midget in Finland, would have destroyed completely what Nnamdi Kanu has bled for years. A bishop visited Nnamdi Kanu. When he came out, he went to the media and he talked about how Nnamdi Kanu told him that some or most of the charges against him were crimes perpetrated by the midget in Finland. Nobody is talking about that. Nobody is talking about that. I look at the retentive capacity of our people, the memory retention capacity of our people. We easily forget. We easily carry on. We easily forget the importance or lessons learned from past events. I came out and I said that boy does not work for Nnamdi Kanu. I asked Nnamdi Kanu several times, does this boy work for you? I do not condone violence. People, say, oh, Nnamdi Kanu asked for this person to be killed, asked for that. That is not true. It's a narrative being driven around by government stooges and the rest of them. We saw the handiwork of the government. That boy would commit something, they would tag it on IP. Even a little child could understand the psychological war that we were facing. If some of you recall, there was a time I attended a prayer session on, I think on a Zoom. And that boy was the what is it called? The boy in Finland was the technician. He was the one connecting volumes and microphones, airing all of that. So as at that time, I was Nnamdi Kanu's wife. But by the time I came out and said that if you say you are fighting for the liberation of our people and you want to benefit or, benefit from the relevance or the popularity of IPOB, that is fine. There is Mossop and the rest of them, every single person talking about the liberation of Biafra, or liberation of our people. Of course, the more the better. The more the better. But what we are fighting against is you coming to destroy IPOB, all in the name of fighting. That doesn't make sense. And that will not happen. I don't see anybody mentioning the atrocities of that boy that were unjustly and illegally tagged to IPOB and Nnamdi Kanu. Everybody has moved on. Everybody has moved on. Why must you, what's this? I'm trying to read this and I can't. So I'm trying to read this comment. Okay, I don't understand that English anyway. So, this structure fought and made sure that Nnamdi Kanu was not convicted by this, but we understood where the whole thing was going to. We understood the play, and we kept screaming, disassociating Nnamdi Kanu from those atrocities. Someone has written to me and said, but people were eating human beings. Mazi Chilasanwori has talked about people eating, becoming cannibals, eating human flesh. How can a human being eat human flesh? And you say you're liberating people of Biafra. You are not working for us. Neither are you speaking for Nnamdi Kanu. So that is the war that we have fought and we stood. What were we fighting for? Why didn't we say, okay, you, this boy midget in Finland, go on, carry on, destroy. Let's just sit back and watch you. Why did we fight? We fought to protect the institution. We fought to protect the structure. We fought to protect IPOB and all this structure, IPOB, DOS. This is Nnamdi Kanu. Okay? So we were fighting to protect Nnamdi Kanu. And another thing the Nigerian government fought for so much was to tag Nnamdi Kanu international terrorists. We knew where they were going to. And we fought for them to stand still. You cannot tag Nnamdi Kanu is not a terrorist. Neither would he become an international one. That was why I quickly made that live broadcast for the very first time. when they did their illegal conviction. And if the institution IPOB was destroyed by these automated fools, what do you think would have happened? Every single media in the world would have tagged Nnamdi Kanu an international terrorist. That is what would have happened, because that was the aim. They continuously relegated everything that has to do with Nnamdi Kanu. Once there's a news out there, the next minute it's been suppressed. Nigerian government did everything to suppress everything, every news, every campaign that exonerated Nnamdi Kanu. They kept suppressing it, but IPOB media met them. And today, Nnamdi Kanu cannot be tagged as an international terrorist. Nnamdi Kanu has been recognized by the state of Georgia in the US because IPOB fought and stood. I don't think any member of DOS will be there forever. Okay? Some of them will decide to leave. Some of them, however, Nnamdi Kanu decides. Nnamdi Kanu is the one that instituted them and inaugurated them. It's also Nnamdi Kanu that would decide with them. But that is when he comes out. That is what I stand for. And that is where I will continue to stand. In the past, I have been starved, I was blackmailed, I was humiliated, I was disrespected. That is a story for another day. But I stood my ground anyway. I was isolated. But till tomorrow, I am standing on the same ground. That is me, dignity and consistency and integrity. If this is the right thing and I stand on there, that is where I will continue to stand. It does not matter what anybody says. So a house divided cannot negotiate freedom. Okay? So another one is that they had political maturity. And that is non-negotiable. Showing emotions, we all have emotions. But our noise and emotions would not equate to strategy, would not equate to diplomacy. Neither would our victimhood equate to us having a political identity. That will not create the identity that we want. There must be maturity in how we do things. So the call today is for all Biafran leadership to reflect on their responsibility and renewal. So for reflection, we must ask ourselves, what have we built? What have we built? What do we have at hand, on hand? What have we sustained? What have we unified? What have we protected? And for responsibility, every Biafran at home and abroad must embrace responsibility. Responsible speech, responsible organizing, responsible leadership, responsible advocacy, responsible unity. Because freedom requires discipline. We must be mindful of how we speak, what we say. And for the leadership, they need to understand that leadership is not when you're noisy and the rest of it. It requires strategy, patience, negotiation, institution building, sacrifice, and consistency. I believe that we have all sacrificed for something. I have sacrificed. When I think about my life, sometimes I have to block out some things in order to function appropriately. Okay? I have to block out some certain things in order to function in a certain way. And that is being conscious. Not letting my emotions determine how I speak and how I act. There are 1,001 things I need to say. There are 1,001 things that I need to do to show that I am upset. There are 1,001 things that I need to do, that I can do. Not I need to, I can do to show that I am displeased. There are 1,001 things that I can show to make everyone understand that I have been offended, I have been betrayed, and I have been abused and humiliated. But I understand time and season. And at the appropriate time, I will come forth. But for now, the most important thing is the release of Nnamdi Kanu, getting the house together, and then everybody tabling what their problem is. Somaliland leaders were not perfect. Nnamdi Kanu, I remember people insulting him and saying things. Today, everybody's running down. Oh yeah, Nnamdi Kanu, he said it. He said it 10 years ago. He did this. I insulted him. Today, I'm sorry and all that. No, he's a man I respect so much. That is consistency. Everybody will not like what a leader is doing. They are not perfect. But they are steady. So support is very important. And the path forward for us as a people is these lessons from Somaliland. Let it be rooted in our reality. And that's the way we can build our internal governance structures. Even without recognition, we don't have to be recognized. We can build our local councils. We can build economic cooperatives. We can build a strong dispute resolution systems. We can build community security frameworks. ESN is there and already doing very well. If our people, how can you not support ESN, but you want to pay millions of naira to or hundreds of millions for a ransom, when you can empower your village security systems to protect your area? We can establish a unified political vote. If you look at all these inferences that are withdrawn now from Somaliland, ANC, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique, and Eritrea, they are all political, connected, or politically connected. Not creating 10, 5, 20 factions. There is a broadcast I made in 2023. I talked about the misunderstanding of the mantra Iwenweze. If that very broadcast can be replayed. Okay, so these 2010 factions speaking different things, coming from the same idea, but speaking differently. It can cause disparities and confusion and contradictions. So just one line of political voice, not competing spokesperson or contradictory narratives, as I said. Just one voice, one message, and one strategy. Then we prioritize our stability, very importantly. The world respects stability. If there is no stability in Somaliland, there would not have been any recognition. So there must not be chaos and internal conflict. We must avoid that and protect our land. Self-preserve our place and protect our people. And then document our historical legitimacy, just as Somaliland anchored its claim in 1960. We must anchor ours in pre-colonial identity. We have that. We have the 1967 to 1970 Civil War, dragging men. Why are we not dragging men like Gowon to ICC? Babangida wrote his book, and he cleared the air, that impending narrative of Igbo coup. What did Igbo do about it? What has been done about it? These opportunities, why are we not maximizing them? We also have our right. We need to document our right to self-determination. The documented atrocities. Christian genocide. How do you people even understand how that started in the first place? The Christian genocide started by documentation. How do you name a thing? It is by patterns and documentation. Like this very DOS stood underground and pushed. You heard about Emeka Umawalisi. How do you think all of that came through? Why do you think $9 million or $1 billion has been spent? It is from Christian genocide, and that is from the push by the DOS. So every single person, put back your anger, your right to be upset at anybody. We're all humans. You can be upset at anybody. That is okay. But let us protect what belongs to us. Let us guard Nnamdi Kanu. Let us safeguard his presence at where he is. Let us protect our people. Let us understand time and season. Let us understand the time to be angry, time to disparage publicly, and time to disparage internally or discreetly. Another is the international law, understanding all the laws that can safeguard us and then work with it. We also need to build alliances with intention. We have to become intentional in what we're doing. Cannot be the same thing every day, every year, expecting a different result. The Somalilanders did not chase everyone. They built quietly until the right partner came. And we must do the same. Biafra will be given. Biafra will not be given. It must be built. And by us, all of us. Somaliland teaches a simple truth. Recognition is earned by construction of freedom, cultivated legitimately through a disciplined path of leadership. Let's not continue to prove our adversaries right. Oh, Igwe Nweze. Okay? Being intelligent is knowing when the path you're going is wrong and to question. It doesn't mean you're not loyal. We're not monolithic. We are Republicans by nature. But it doesn't mean that we can't set a rule of law. We all moved our bags to United Kingdom, United States of America, Japan, where else? Russia, where else? Canada, Australia. Why? Who set those laws? Magna Carta that binds United Kingdom today was erected by humans, by the king. Why? To protect people from power. Because humans are funny. So If Biafrans want what Somaliland has begun to receive, we must become what Somaliland became. A people who take themselves seriously. Seriously. This is our moment to rise in absence of noise and build our nation in discipline. It's how many years now? 10 years. Most of us have lost a lot of things. Some 12 years, 13 years. It is not a good thing. We are all suffering. We are all going through one thing and another. And this is what binds us as brothers. So I urge us all, no matter what your anger is for, insulting people, it doesn't actually change anything. It only creates holes and gaps for the adversaries to come through. So let us remember that what binds us together is the goal, Biafra, that objective. And that is the blood that is thicker than water. Not with division and emotional outbursts, rather, let there be an exhibition of strategic unity and mature leadership. I beg you all. Let all these things stop, please. I came on social media 2 days ago to post, what did I post 2 days ago? And I saw something came through my feed. I saw something about somebody insulting Nnamdi Kanu. You people need to just stop already. They say that everybody in IPOB is illiterate, is this, is that, and you're all proving them right. You insulting Nnamdi Kanu, who is that person? Are you insane? Are we not suffering enough? Is Nnamdi Kanu not suffering enough? Are the people under his instruction, DOS, are they not suffering enough? For the sake of our sufferings, for the sake of the whatever, the normal life that people live. None of us live it. None of us live it. So for the sake of the absence of normal living, can we all please stop all of this? This is our call to reflection, responsibility, and leadership, and ultimately our call to freedom. Thank you once again for joining me this evening. Thank you for your time. From me, from here, it is good evening. God bless you all.